So who was the 58X for? Do its flaws actually make it a better sounding headphone? Stick around, let's find out. Greetings, comrades. Stuart Charles here, HomeStudioBasics.com, helping you make sound decisions leading to a beautiful audio experience that will make you fall in love with music, not gear, all over again. So, big shout out to my cousin Bob. He sold me the 58X. I finally got my hands on this headphone. I was able to get a really good deal on these. Now, these will be included in a giveaway pretty soon. I don't know exactly when. I just got finished with the cost giveaway, so we'll see. Let's get right into build and comfort. The 58X is pretty much identical to the others in the line. It's got the cratered pad, similar to the 650's pad. The headphone this time around is all black. As you may recall, the 6XX is midnight blue. Looked kind of tacky in the daytime, but really cool at night. The HD600, of course, had the speckled blue finish, and the 650 has the gray metal flake finish. So I actually really enjoy the all matte black here because pretty much everything in my studio is black. So yeah, comfort is also identical. Of course, most of you guys already know that the clamping force on HD 500 and 600 models is pretty tight at first, but does open up over time. The 58X is no different, although I've always told people that wearing this headphone is like receiving a warm hug from a trusted old friend, so there's that. I really enjoy the fit. Pretty much never have to adjust it. It doesn't really dig into the top of your head, which is great. So the cratered pad is one of the best that I've ever experienced on any headphone. The 4 nugget pads on the HD600 are good as well, but sometimes those tended to dig a little bit. So I think when Sennheiser came out with the 650, they really rectified that, and they've pretty much used that pad moving forward now for the last, I don't even know how many years, but all parts are replaceable. You can replace the pads, the grills, the cables. I would definitely go ahead and, if you're new to the hobby and you're gonna pick up a pair of these or another in the line, I would go ahead and just get a pair of replacement pads right away, just so you have them. Depending on usage, you'll have to replace them every so often, so maybe about a year, depending if you use them every day. Durability is also very good here. I've dropped these already like 3 or 4 times now. My cousin told me he treats his headphones like glass, and his baby was basically playing with the cable, and ain't nobody got time for that. So yeah, those darn babies, you can't trust them. So how do they sound? Now, there's definitely more bass here.
I caught you a delicious bass.
The mid bass is by and large pretty similar to the others, or maybe a little bit more, but what you'll notice is that the sub bass does not roll off nearly as much as the others in the line, which gives it that extra thump. So faith in humanity restored a little bit, because I had heard that the 58X is basically more bass, and that is definitely true. Now, some people were saying that it's grainy sounding. I don't really hear that. It's definitely not grainy, in my opinion. But yeah, the main difference is definitely going to be the bass. Also, another difference is the sometimes overly holographic mid-range. Now, when you're listening to this headphone on its own, you don't really get that sense. It sounds lively and engaging and crisp and tight and everything. It's only when you put, and I talk about this a lot, it's only when you put a perfectly tuned headphone like the HD560S up against this that you start to hear that almost immediately. And it was a little bit jarring. It's almost like the 560S revealed those flaws in the 58X that I otherwise might not have heard. It's always helpful to go back and forth between headphones. That way you can kind of get a sense of their strengths and weaknesses. But I would say by and large though, the mids are really, really good. If you look at a graph of this headphone, it's almost a perfect headphone on paper, but it's sometimes just a little bit overly aggressive, a little bit too gruff, like vocals are kind of a little bit pushed in your face. Female and male vocals, I noticed Common's The Light, a song I've heard probably a thousand times at least by now, since it came out 21 years ago. His voice is just a little bit too gruff, a little bit too husky, a little bit too in your face. But again, it's not like a deal breaker or anything, but you will notice it. Female voices as well. So Emily Rode, she just came out with a new album, which I highly recommend. I'll leave a link down below to my playlist as well as her album. Really, really good album. But her voice on a couple of tracks is just a little bit too in your face. But again, it might be how the track was recorded, because really the 58X, as much as I'm kind of nitpicking at its flaws, it's not really that big of a deal. You're gonna really enjoy this headphone if you're new to the hobby. So the tonality may not be as good as an HD600, but again, this is, I would call this maybe slightly, I would call this HD600 a little bit of an upgrade from this, as well as the HD6XX, but not by much. I mean, you could go with this and be perfectly fine for quite a while. I may personally just go with a 6XX, but I really did enjoy the lively, engaging character. It's kind of a more fun sound. Definitely some added coloration, but you know, if you're new, you may not even care, you may not even notice. You may actually really come to adore it. It's more exciting. I guess the analogy I would use is like a photograph in Photoshop that's just a little bit too, there's just a little bit too much contrast. There's lushness, but you can kind of tell it's a tad overly saturated. But the treble, again, as with all Sennheiser headphones, is really, really good. I don't get the sense that these are SE or sibilant. I can wear them for a long time without adjusting them, without taking them off due to ear fatigue or musical fatigue or anything like that. So you'll notice on a graph, the treble is a little bit forward, but still, it's not. This is not like a Deva or a Hi-Fi Man 400 series headphone. Those are notorious for being very kind of a little bit sibilant, a little bit piercing, a little bit SE, and you can easily hear that. But with this, with HD58X, 6XX, 600, 650, you're not gonna get that that piercing character. So yeah, Soundstage. I would consider the 58X's Soundstage slightly above average. Now, I was pretty surprised at how well this headphone does for gaming and film. I wasn't really expecting it, given I've owned the HD600 since 2016. I've demoed the 650 on many occasions, demoed the 6XX, and none of those headphones I would really ever recommend for gaming. The 600 is definitely the worst. The 650, for whatever reason, to me, its Soundstage was a little bit better. I started to hear things a little bit outside of my immediate vicinity when gaming. Yeah, the Sundar and the 400 series are definitely better than 650. So I would put this kind of like a Sundar or a 400 series, maybe a little bit worse. The Sundar and the 400 series are probably a little bit better. In terms of Soundstage, so I would put those above average, where I would put this slightly above average. Forgot that. Yeah, so after the 400 series, I would put a 560S above that, so it's getting in excellent territory. And then, in my personal opinion, K702 would be excellent to exemplary in terms of Soundstage. I'm not really going to get into that too much. Yeah, some accuse it of being unnaturally wide, but I can see that, because the 58X does a really good job of filling in the areas to the northeast and northwest of your head. So like up in here and up in here. Up in here, up in here. Whereas the 702 may be missing that center image sometimes. Definitely agree there, but to me, Soundstage on the 702 it's just totally worth it, because of how well everything is separated and how crisp it ends up sounding. So 58X, better for gaming than I thought it was going to be. So if you're looking for a gaming headphone, this is definitely one to consider. As far as amplification goes, this is only 150 ohms. Now this and the 660S are both 150 ohm, versus the 650, the 600, and the 6XX are 300 ohms. So they are a little bit harder to drive, whereas this one is not. Another reason that a newbie audiophile snob may prefer this, because you don't really need as much power. So an example would be if you're using a Zen with power match on, you'll be at around 10 to 11 with the 58X, whereas with the 600, 650, 6XX, you're always going to be around 1 to 2 with power match. This also pairs really well with the K3. My cousin included some 2.5 millimeter balance cable, so I've been listening with that as well. That's a separate video, balance versus unbalanced, but just know that this is very, very easy to drive and doesn't take much power at all. So
don't overthink it.
I would say all genres do really well here, but I mostly listen to hip hop, indie pop, and rock, which is my bread and butter, along with jazz and classical. Jazz and classical can work for these, but those genres and other lighter compositions, the 702 is probably a much better purchase. So this is why I like to have both 600 series headphone and a 702, because, you know, the 702 just does a lot better for certain compositions, lighter acoustic type of stuff, subtle, gentle jazz brush hits and strokes, and classical music as well. So a 702 is ideal for those, also because it does a better job of spreading things out and portrays that type of music in a more delicate light, whereas with the 58X, things are going to be a little bit more closed in sounding, not as closed in as a 600. So what's the final word? I enjoyed the 58X a lot more than I thought. I think the flaws in this headphone actually work to its advantage, interestingly enough. It may be more appealing and more accessible to a noob who knows absolutely nothing about audio. Again, the difference between the 58X and the 6XX might not matter to you much. And finally, if you're looking for more neutral and honest, definitely I would go with the 600. If you're looking for more fun, more lively, with a little bit of added coloration, the 58X is definitely the one to get. Now, if I had to do it all over again, I would probably not get an HD600. I would probably just get an HD6XX, which to me is almost a perfect cross section between all the headphones. I've talked quite a bit about the 6XX, so I'm not going to get into that much here. But so yeah, definitely check out my review. I'll leave a link right here. All right, bye. Here we go. I'm a hillbilly Bob with my cap facing forward. I got a big ass yard and I sure like to mow it. Smoking cancer sticks while I do it. Ride my John Deere, y'all, I feel like I'm in a movie. When I'm all done, I go inside and do some gaming. I got my headphones and Cheetos and my pretty lady. She's hot as Haiti. I keep a gun for them squirrels with them rabies. God bless America, that's my word, is what I'm saying. Y'all think I'm joking, but I ain't playing. I'm still praying even when I feel it's raining. Cause life is tough, but I'm built for it tougher. Eating Nutter Butters in the summer, watching Dumb and Dumber.